Okay, so I have on my screen a picture of the various uh, folks that the Spanish government, and I should say really the Mexican government, allowed into Texas to settle Texas. And these were called the impresarios. An impresario was someone that dealt with the Mexican government and signed a contract with the Mexican government, wherein the Mexican government allowed these folks to bring in a number of families into various areas of Texas. Uh, Again, the idea here is the Mexican, we're into the Mexican period now after 1821. Uh, they're allowing groups from the United States to come into Texas. Now, this begs the question, knowing what we know about Texas history, why were the Spanish and then later the Americans, I'm sorry, why were the Spanish and later the Mexicans, why were they so dumb? How could they possibly allow Americans into Texas? You know, the Spanish had always been super paranoid about any outsiders coming into their territory in Texas. And there was a legacy of that in Mexico as well. Many of the leaders of Mexico had been Spanish officials. So why did they do this? Basically, why did they let the fox into the hen house? And the reason for this is the Mexican government had very, very few options. It had a tiny population that I think was 6 million. It had just gone through a 10-year war with the Spanish. Mexico was dramatically underpopulated. It stretched from the border of Guatemala on the south all the way to Northern California, included uh, California, New Mexico, Arizona, and what we traditionally think of Mexico today. So it was a pretty weak country. It been bled dry both in terms of human life and financially in gaining its freedom from the Spanish. And so the Mexican government did not have any good cards to play. All the cards they had to play were terrible. And so basically, they went ahead with these agreements with these various impresarios, most of whom, not all, but most of whom were American, as I said, in the hopes that these Americans would come into Mexican Texas and that they would become good, faithful, loyal Mexican citizens, which of course is not what happened. Again, the families were supposed to learn Spanish. They were supposed to become Roman Catholic. They were supposed to swear allegiance to the Mexican government. And the hope was somehow these folks coming in from the US, as many as possible, uh, brought their slaves. They're enslaved. That somehow there'd be some alchemy where they would transform from Americans into Mexicans. And it just didn't work. You know, for one thing, the United States was just next door. It wasn't like they'd gone to Mars, right? They had just crossed the Sabine River. So the Spanish, and more importantly, the Mexicans made a bet that blew up in their face. But again, they didn't have any good cards to play. All the cards they had were terrible. So if you, I'm posting this impresario map on Canvas. You'll see that Austin actually got the best land. He got a tremendous the Austin ultimately. I think he brings in 1,300 families, something like that. Because he's first, he gets the best land. But there were other impresarios. I'm not going to torture you by making you remember all of them. The one Tejano impresario was De Leon, and that's where we get Refugio Victoria. That was created in the 1820s. But most of the impresarios that came in to into Texas were Americans. Now, you also have Zavala in the northeast of Texas, but that was a disputed claim that honestly, I'm not going to bore you with the details about that. Here's the big point. 1820s, with the permission of the Spanish government, Americans start coming into Mexican, gosh, I keep saying Spanish government. I'm still in Spain. With the permission of the Mexican government, Americans start coming into Mexican Texas. White Americans are coming in. They're taking their slaves, their captives with them, and of course, their captives have no choice in the matter. You have tremendous amounts of family separation, and by 1836, you have 30,000 Anglo Americans in Texas, 1836, the year of the Texas Revolution. You have 5,000 enslaved African Texans, and you still only have about 2,500 Tejanos. So, no, just in like a 15-year period or so, Anglos far outnumber Tejanos in Texas, 30,000 to 2,500. And in fact, there are twice as many African Texas who were forced into slavery as there are Tejanos into Texas. So the ethnic makeup of Texas changes radically, radically beginning in the 1820s. And what we're starting to see is the introduction of the cotton economy into Mexican Texas. And it's a cotton economy, and the foundation of which, the labor foundation of which, is the enslaved labor of people of African descent. So Texas is becoming a very, very, very different place between 1821 and 1836.